there a leg to stand on here, legally speaking, that with a partnership and allowing OpenAI basically to be intertwined with Siri, that it's stopping fair competition for the other Gen AI chatbots?
Well, I'm afraid this is a case that's not really going to launch. The Apple has a broad range of power to select who it's going to partner with, and I don't think there's a really compelling story here that competition is harmed through the arrangement that Apple has made, which seems to be clearly consistent with mainstream antitrust law.
Okay, so if he doesn't have perhaps the legal leg to stand on, maybe this more of a public relations argument in many ways, is there anything he can do about the ratings within the App Store, do you think, and the way in which that is deemed to be biased or not?
I think Apple's been tested on this in a number of areas. And of course, there's been litigation in this area. And I think Apple's quite careful to make sure it's not violating the law. And just, fundamental principles of competition law. Apple has the ability to decide who it's going to partner with and what those arrangements are, unless it's unnecessarily exclusionary. It really prevents rivals from being able to effectively compete. And here, Apple has said in a straightforward fashion, this arrangement is not exclusive. This is a question of just Elon Musk coming to the table with Apple and coming up with a better deal to convince them to include his AI product.
Yeah, because the idea was always, when the announcement was first made by Apple, that other third parties will be invited to the table. Of course, there's an ongoing antitrust investigation that overwhelms perhaps Alphabet at the moment and the way in which payments go between Apple and Alphabet, but certainly Gemini AI getting closer to Apple. We know that maybe a Perplexity, others eventually will make some sort of agreement, and that could iron out any antitrust issues?
Yes, I definitely think so. But, this is Elon Musk again trying to use the muscle of the antitrust laws to coerce a rival into entering into arrangement. That's just not going to work. A court's going to see right through that.
Okay, you say it's once again, we do know that Elon Musk has, I think, leveled at least one or two cases, the direction of OpenAI, and OpenAI had now been calling it harassment on that respect, but he's never really targeted Apple before. How much is it a distraction? How expensive is it for companies to do this?
Apple has very strong armor, and they're used to this area. There's a cost with being a firm that develops very successful products and has an important market position. And that cost is you're often subject to these types of antitrust suits. Apple's a very well-counseled company. I'm sure that they've figured out ways of entering into this arrangement with OpenAI that do not put them in hot water.
And what's also interesting in the context of all of this is that Gemini AI is the competitor owned by Alphabet, which of course has the Android ecosystem and relationships with Samsung that of course integrates, therefore, Gemini AI. Is that part of the argument also here, that plenty of people are downloading apps, plenty of people have standalone use cases, these chatbots, and it's not just using OpenAI purely through the Apple ecosystem?
I think that's true, and but there are plenty of alternatives, and this is just a question of being able to enter into a business arrangement. Musk may not like the terms that Apple is offering him, but ultimately the antitrust laws, the purpose of the antitrust laws, Justice Brennan said 60 years ago, is to protect competition and consumers and not competitors. And that, basically Musk is asking a court to stand antitrust law on its head and put it in a position of protecting his interests and not the interests of consumers.